If you've been following my videos or my blog posts for a while now, you know that I speak unpleasantly about my previous jobs. My warehouse job as a warehouse manager, and my job in the factory as an electronic assembler. Now, that particular job I haven't talked about much, but I may have mentioned it here and there. Both jobs were aggravating to me because I had no passion for it. And one of the big reasons why is because I have big aspirations for my life. I know what direction to go. I know what I want to do, and I have been doing it. And that's be a filmmaker and an actor. I've been doing it ever since I was a kid. I had a television show at the age of 16, but unfortunately, when you are in that business, sometimes it's all about luck or being in the right place at the right time. I haven't had that luck yet. I haven't been at the right place at the right time. But I work towards it. And in the meanwhile, I enjoy making movies. I enjoy editing movies and writing them and performing. It's my passion. It's what I want to do full time when I can finally get to do it. But I have to pay bills. I have to support myself. So I have to have a job. And I chose not to be a waiter and do any of that kind of stuff or be a cashier because I don't think I would be good with customers. I could have a short fuse when it comes to that. And so I thought it would be better for me to work behind the scenes where I don't have to deal with customers. So that's what led me to working at a factory doing electronic assembly work and the warehouse where I did shipping and receiving and order picking. Now, with the factory job, that job drove me crazy. It drove me out of my freaking mind. I had to sit there in the same spot all day long. We worked nine and a half hour days there. And that was the only benefit. We'd work 9.5 hour days, and then Fridays we'd get to leave early. Well, except for me, I would leave later than everyone else because I had to do the shipping. In any case, I would only ship like an hour a day, and the rest of the time I was sitting there assembling products, and it was just nonstop repetition and the same thing over and over and over again every day, every day, every day. I went crazy. I couldn't stand it. It really wreaked havoc on my life because it would just haunt me, and I would get home and it would stay with me. And I was angry all the time and miserable, and I hated life. And I can't sit in the same spot for a long time. I have to move. I just can't do it. I mean, even if, with television, I can't sit there all day and watch television. For those people who do it, I don't know how they do it. I just can't. It drives me crazy. And even now that I work from home, when I have a day where I got to sit here and work in front of the computer all day, I got to get up and walk around for a while. Or go do some quick little project outside or in my garage. Just something. So I can just break this repetitious nonsense. The warehouse job was more tolerable. That was the opposite. I was up on my feet all day, constantly walking around. There was a giant warehouse. It could be painful at times. And that job, was tolerable. I got along with the bosses. And unlike the factory job, at the factory job, they didn't care about the employees. They just didn't seem to care. They seemed more selfish, and they stopped giving raises, and the bonuses were super tiny. And while they're growing and making money, we're all just getting paid the crap we were getting paid. And their answer to a problem, if you had any kind of issue, their answer was, well, if you don't like it here, you can go somewhere else. That was just an absolute disrespectful comment and very blatantly saying, hey, you don't matter. Because if you were important, they would say, hey, let's talk this over. That's where the warehouse was good. They would talk problems over. They would figure it out. They never yelled at you or screamed at you or any of that stuff. If something went wrong, they'd say, hey, how can we fix this? Unfortunately, in the end, and I told you that story, and I'm not going to go through it now, things didn't end well because of what someone else did. And then they sabotaged my job, and I ended up losing my job because of their sabotage. But with all that being said, the warehouse, again, I didn't want to be there. I didn't have a passion for it. I didn't want to have a future there because that's not what I wanted to do for a living. I wanted to make movies and be an actor. And I say want to be an actor. I am an actor. I've been in movies. I've written screenplays. I edit. I do all of that stuff. I just don't earn enough money to support myself with it. So I'm saying all this because I'm really concerned that people are going to think that I look down upon blue-collar jobs when I don't. I have a belief that you should always work hard no matter what job it is, even if you don't like the job. If someone is paying you to do a job, then you better do that job. I believe that you should do it to the best of your ability. You should care about the work that you do. And I say that even if you don't have a passion for it and you don't want to be there, but you have to because you got bills to pay, you should at least care about the quality of your work. Because that represents you. If you do half-ass jobs and you never complete your work, or your work is sloppy, or you're lazy, well then that represents you. I didn't want to be viewed that way. I made sure I was always honest, upfront, never lied. I made sure that I worked hard. I very seldom was out sick. I was very seldom late, and if I was late, I picked up the phone to call. And when I did it, I didn't think that was a big deal. Yet I was told that I was one of the only ones doing it. Everybody else would just show up late. Well, I had a job to do, and I'm supposed to be there at a certain time, so if I was going to be late for whatever reason, it was important to call. That's how you need to be at a job. So I absolutely believe in hard work, and I've done it. I have been working since I was about 8 years old. I first started doing lawn mowing, and it started out with one neighbor, and then it moved to another neighbor, and then it moved to, like, my whole block. And one of my particular neighbors actually hired me to be his landscaper. And when that happened, I was about 14 years old, or maybe even younger, 13. About 13 to 14 years old. And there I am doing landscape work. It was great. He paid well. And then at the age, right after that job ended, immediately I got hired by a restaurant. So there I am, a 14-year-old working at a restaurant. And I worked there for 2 years. And just as it would be when I got laid off from that job and they closed their doors, I started my own television show at the age of 16 and did that for 2 years. The only time that I wasn't working was in 1995 until the fall. And that's because I was homeless. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a place. I lived in a motel room, and I tried to get a job, and nobody would hire me because I had no address. That's the only time I didn't work. So I absolutely believe in hard work. I've done a lot of things, and I'm young. I'm not even in my 40s yet. But I hated doing, well, I loved the restaurant job, actually. I mean, it could be brutally boring at times, but that would be my favorite job of all, because they were huge supporters in my career as a comedian, and would let me perform in the restaurant, would actually call me out on shifts. I used to be a busboy and did some food prep, and they would just call me out and have me do a little performance. So that was great, because at that time, you know, had only been doing it for a few years. And that's great. And because of that restaurant job, they let me do a comedy TV special. And I had never been on television before. But they let me do a comedy TV special where I did stand up. It aired on local public access. And I didn't think anybody was going to watch it. And as it turned out, people did. And one of those people who watched it was someone I went to school with who I never met, didn't know. But that person loved that show so much and saw my talent that they came up and befriended me. And then they became one of my biggest supporters. This person helped me create my TV show. And they helped drive that show during our first year. He became one of my best friends and one of my greatest supporters. sadly, as a matter of fact, tomorrow will be the anniversary, the, the 6-year anniversary of his death. But he was made a huge difference in my life. But what I'm pointing out here is that each thing has a purpose. Everything leads to something else. Everything. And after the show ended and I became homeless, that led me to entering a new phase in my life and doing these jobs. But my job as an electronic assembler had gotten on my nerves so much it pushed me to make my first movie. Because I just had enough. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not waiting around for Hollywood. I'm not waiting until I have enough money to actually go there. I'm just doing it. I'm just making a movie and I'm doing it now. And that's exactly how it all started. And I've been doing it ever since. And that leads to the warehouse job. Everything went to hell in the end at that warehouse job. And that led me here to working for myself. Now I have a better shot now than I ever had in my life to go somewhere and make my dreams come true. So I don't look down upon hard work. I absolutely believe in it because it matters and it leads you to something. I don't care what job it is. If you work at McDonald's and you don't want to be there, it's just a job, you know, and you have aspirations for other things, you still need to do the best job you can. And you should always strive for that. Show up on time, work your whole shift. Don't call out sick unless you absolutely have to. Now, I know when you're working in the food industry, if you're sick, you probably shouldn't be there. You know, I don't need you sneezing on my hamburger or anything. But, you know, don't show up late and treat the job with respect and do a good job. And I also say to employers who may be listening to me, if you own a brick and mortar company, you need to take the time to get to know the people that works for you. And don't judge them. I got judged because I was very shy at work. I wasn't, you know, Mr. Outgoing. I know I sound like I'm a talker when you see these videos and that you could see the passion come out of me and you probably think, oh, this is probably a cool guy to talk to. He's probably the life of the party because he's so out there. He's like, hey! But that's not true. I'm only comfortable in front of the camera. When I'm out, I just had, my nephew had his first birthday. And I probably said no more than 3 words. I was around, you know, my brother's in-laws and, you know, I get kind of quiet around people when I'm in public. It's strange. But it's the same thing with a job. It probably has to do with my social anxiety disorder. So that job, my boss would judge me because of it. But I shouldn't have to be forced to say, yeah, I think I might have an issue that's called social anxiety disorder. And, well, let me explain it to you. So, you know, I shouldn't have to do that. But he passed judgment. And he would actually bring me in his office and have meetings and say, hey, you know, I don't know if you don't like it here or what's going on, but how come you never just come to the office and talk to people? I mean, I'll give that to them, the fact that they had that kind of a place. You know, I worked in the assembly job where they didn't know. From the time you walked in to the time you leave, you better be working. Don't take time out to talk to people. But at the warehouse job, it wasn't like that. They encouraged that. The boss would do it himself. They wanted people to have fun while they were there. So that was cool. But I just couldn't do it. It wasn't in my nature to just walk in the office and just start a conversation with everybody. I worked with someone who was a very nice girl, and they would judge her for being lazy. They would say she was lazy. But she wasn't lazy. It was just her nature. She was just slow moving. And I would talk to her about it, and she would talk to me about it. She would just say, they want me to move quick and do this and that, but I can't do it. It's not me. It's not how I work. I don't even think like that. So I would suggest that you get to know how your employees are and how they work and understand them. Even if you have to have a meeting with them, Be polite about it, but don't pass judgment. Don't do what they did to me and say, why are you like this? Why don't you talk to people? What, do you hate your job? Anyways, the whole point of this video was about hard work. And I want you to understand before we go here that I absolutely believe in it. And just because I get down on those jobs doesn't mean that I'm against any of those type of jobs. You know, I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're cleaning muck out of drains. Someone needs to do that job. And any service that anybody does is important. I don't care how big or small it is. That's just how it is. So no job is too small for anyone. Nobody should be ashamed of their job. I don't care. I mean, if you're pulling poop out of shrimp, hey, people are going to be eating that shrimp. You're doing a great service. Same thing with the assembly work. You know, we were doing electronic assembly work for alarm systems that are going to save people's lives. So even though I hated that job, at least what that product was important. And the warehouse job, they supplied disposable medical clothing to places like the Children's Hospital. So that clothing was being part of, or was helping doctors who saved the lives of human beings. So it all matters. It all matters. Anyways, I think I made my point. You know, hard work matters. And that's all I can say on the subject. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again. Thank you for watching the video. To become a subscriber of my channel, click on the big red button. And hey, while you're at it, please visit my website at jrwork.biz. There's a lot of cool stuff there, money-making opportunities, and you might find some surprises as well.
Excuse me?
But it's a secret. You have to go there to find out.
I gotta take a poo. Bro, can I go now? I gotta take a poo.